Hi, my name's Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies, and today I want to talk about tariffs. And you're like, what are you talking about tariffs for? You're an archery channel. That's what we're going to get to. So behind me is a fridge. It was made in South Australia, where I live, okay? I walked into the shop and I said, I want to buy a fridge made in Australia. And the first thing the salesman did was scratch his head because he didn't know where fridges were made. So then I had to go home and research what fridges are made in Australia. This one was the last fridge. We no longer make fridges in Australia. Now it so happens both my sisters also have this fridge, and not because they were made in Australia, just because they thought it was a cool fridge. It's good build thing. Cost me about $2,000. Where are you going to with this, Stephen? We'll get to it. Now behind me is my Holden. Now this was made in Australia, okay? Back when we used to make stuff in Australia. Now, in all my channels, if you watch some of my stuff, my dad was managing director of Mitsubishi Motors, or back in the day, Chrysler, when we had Chrysler in Australia. So back in the day, back many years ago, Australia used to build stuff. We used to make engines, we used to make cars, we used to make seatbelts, we used to make seats. We used to make everything that goes inside this car in Australia, okay? We made railway lines to take things to the car manufacturers and take things from the car manufacturers to ship stuff around Australia. That's what we did. We made stuff here, okay? Now, when my dad was managing director of Mitsubishi Motors, the Labor Department, Labor government, and I'm not having to go left or right, but it was the Labor government, came to my dad and said, we're going to get rid of tariffs, okay? He said, what this is going to do, the guy's name was Neil Button, who was a minister in the Labor Department government. He came in and said, we're going to get rid of tariffs, which means that imported cars coming into Australia won't have a tax on them, okay? So that means locally built cars will have to compete against imported cars. And my dad said to Neil, he said, this is going to wipe out the Australian car market, it's going to wipe out manufacturing in Australia, and all these jobs are going to be lost, okay? Neil said, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. What it's going to do is open up the world market for Australia to export cars like this to the rest of the world. Okay, so we're going to become an exporting hub for manufacturing to the rest of the world. And my dad said, no, you're wrong, because the cost of making stuff is far less, and there's far less restrictions and regulations overseas to make stuff. So the cost of making stuff is far less overseas. And overseas, it's a bit different. Like, all the cars come into Australia, so any car you can think of is imported into Australia. But overseas, they don't take our products. Okay, so it's not a reciprocal arrangement where we take all your products and they'll take all ours. Okay, or we'll take all your TVs and we'll give you all our sheep or all our wine that we make. It's not like that. So our wine that is exported to China has lots of tariffs on it, okay? Why am I talking about tariffs? Because Donald Trump had a podcast the other day, okay? You probably saw it, 300 million, 30 million views or something with Joe Rogan, and he was talking about bringing back tariffs to America. So if a product is made overseas, there will be an import tax when it comes into America to encourage people to make stuff in America again. Okay, now this happened last time he was in power. Ford was about to move their manufacturing plants to Mexico. Okay, and he said, if you do that, we're going to have 100% tax on those cars coming into America. And Ford didn't do that. Okay, so they left their plant in America instead of building a super plant in Mexico. And I think the same thing's going on right now. Okay, it's definitely going on with John Deere tractors. They're wanting to produce in Mexico where the costs are lower, and then import across the border to reduce costs, okay? So I'm watching a podcast, what's this got to do with archery? So I'm watching a podcast last night, which was a debate between the left and the right. And the left people, what you think of them is up to you, but you know, I fully recommend people listening to people's views on things. They said, well, if Donald Trump does this, and he has tariffs on things made overseas, then inflation will go up. Okay, so that's what they said. So they said this is really bad. tariffs are really bad because the cost of living for ordinary Americans will go up. Okay? Now, when I listen to people, I then think, well, how does this all relate? Because are they right or are they wrong? Okay? Now, my background, I was in the public service. I costed policies for years and years and years. And these are various policies. I used to cost about 3 policies a day. And they were just harebrained ideas that people would come up with and I had to cost them. Okay? So, I want to talk about some of this, and I'm going to talk about archery. So behind me is a big TV. We used to make TVs in Australia, right? This big TV, which has got all this tech in it, is amazing. And it cost me 700 bucks. Amazing. So what we're doing is we're buying cheap crap, and I don't mean crap, even though I said crap. We're buying cheap stuff from China, right? And what we're doing is we're saying, well, we won't make stuff here anymore, so we can have a nice cheap TV, okay? So what the Democrats said in this debate, they said, well, if Donald Trump brings in tariffs and lowers income tax, then the cost of living will go up. So says 95% of economists. So I thought, well, I wonder if this is right. Go back to this fridge, okay? So I brought this fridge, I don't know, a few years ago, right? Australian built, cost me $2,000. It's got a nice dispenser, awarded dispenser, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I was like, right, okay, we don't make fridges in Australia anymore. So what's the imported fridge like this going to cost? Similar product, because we don't make fridges anymore because we don't have tariffs. So basically the imported products were so cheap, they just priced our local manufacturers out of business. $2,500 now for this fridge. So the fridge has actually gone up 25%. Hang on, you just said that if we didn't have tariffs, things would... Now, what's this got to do with archery? I'm glad you asked. In America, when I started selling archery gear, America used to make everything. PSE used to make everything. They used to make quivers. They had a whole section for sewing to make quivers. They had a whole section where they made sights, cheap hunting sights in the factory. They had machines for producing these little rubber things you see on your bows, okay? And when I say rubber things, I'm talking anything rubber on your bow was made at the PSE factory. Okay, I thought that is so cool. All these people employed. Okay, I thought it was cool. Okay, at the time I was a public servant. I had a business, but I was a public servant. Okay, I met Brenda from Neat. Neat made quivers. They made arm guards. They made all accessories for archery gear. Now, Brenda's view was family business, so many generations, and she was the daughter of the mum and dad. And they employed about 70 people in a small country town making archery products. And they felt that they had a responsibility to work hard to support the people in the town. A sense of community, okay? When I met Pete Shepley for the first time, he imparted to me that your responsibility as a person was to employ people. He said your responsibility is, if you can, is to create a business and employ people, because it creates jobs and it creates opportunities for people. That's what he told me, and I was like, so here I am, a public servant, and what I'm doing is I'm taking money from taxpayers, people who've got businesses, to pay my wage. Now I could argue whether I was good value or not, okay, but I'm not going to have this discussion. I'm just going to say, as a public servant, I was taking money, and as a taxpayer, now I'm paying, God, lots of tax, okay, lots and lots of tax I pay. Right. So, tariffs. What's this got to do with tariffs? So what Pete said to me, so PSE stopped making quivers, Neat went out of business. So where's all your quivers come from now? China. there is no longer a quiver made in America. They're all made in China. So when you see your Olympic archers with their Eastern quivers, they are not made in America, they're made in China. Okay? So when you see people with their fancy quivers, made in China. So when you talk about tariffs, and you say, well, the prices will go up, I'm telling you, you know, you're an archer, you know those fancy quivers are really expensive, you know they're made in China, and you know they're cheap. So what's happening is there's a markup. So there's a freight to get it into America, which there didn't used to be because it was made in America. But there's a freight to get it in. Now under Donald Trump's plan, there would be a tariff. So an extra percentage put onto the cost of that quiver. Now, does that really worry me? I own a neat quiver that I bought when I was 20 years old, so it's 30 years old, still good today. Made out of leather, fantastic. Doesn't really worry me. Supports local manufacturing. So, the sights that PSE used to make. So PSE used to make hunting sights, okay, back in the day. And Pete said, I can't compete against China, so what I do now is I import them from China and put a PSE sticker on it and go, well, this is a PSE product, and then I sell them to shops. So really PSE is more like a wholesaler, okay? But we've got rid of the manufacturing component out of America and we've gone to being a wholesaler. Right? So there's no, when I say there's no sights made in America anymore, what's made in America is premium products, but the cheaper products are now sourced or made in China. So Axel is doing well, okay? They're made in America, great company, love Axel. Axel make fantastic products. But there's products made in China that compete. There's archers in America who are Americans who are shooting other products made in China that are a similar price. So under the Trump plan, those sites will have a tariff. So what it will do to Axel is give them a huge advantage in the marketplace. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It means Axel will sell more sites, it means Axel will grow, it means Axel will employ more people. I think it also means that in the cheaper market, Axel now becomes more competitive as far as Axel can say, well, the imported sites now become more expensive. Should we start making cheaper sites? Because at the moment we can't compete. We can only compete at the top end. Right, so let's go to bows. Okay, so back years and years ago, I'm going to go back to Hoyt. Hoyt went to China, Korea, and said, make bows for us. Okay? My interpretation of what happened in the 1980s. And then that company then started making bows. Okay? They had a unique limb locking system, which they then obviously copied because it's the same system. And that formed another brand. Okay, now if you made stuff in America and you had tariffs, it wouldn't be as attractive to make stuff overseas. Okay, so maybe Hoyt would have never gone and outsourced products to China and Korea. Okay, and hence maybe those brands would have never been developed. Something to consider. Now, I'm not going to say China's bad. So lots of people shit on China. I'm not one of those because I know the people who work in the factories, they're hard workers, the people who own the companies are very, very much hard workers. They work their ass off to develop products, to develop things, and people are going to say, well, they copy. Yeah, they do. But you know what? Like, every bow company copies every other bow company, every release aid manufacturer copies everything. I'm not making excuses for it. When Dad worked at Mitsubishi, they had all the other brand cars. There's a reason why all cars look the same. It's because everyone goes, well, this is a good idea, let's adopt it. Okay, so, but what I'm saying, in China, they're hard workers, and, you know, I'm not taking anything away from China. Their pricing is amazing. They supply to me. They supply. Eastern go, Stephen, It doesn't matter how big you get, it doesn't matter how hard you work, we're never going to supply you even when I'm 20 years old, right? So no chance that you're ever going to be able to buy Eastern. You don't even know me, I'm working my butt off, right? So if you want to set up a business in Australia selling Eastern or Hoyt, right? Because they won't let you, okay? It's just no way. So at least with the Chinese, well, I'm going to say at least with the Chinese, if you want to buy products, they will let you set up a business. They will let you import and you can go ahead and create a business. I think the ability to set up a business is the foundations of every economy, okay? Your ability to be able to set up a business and go and work and then grow the business and employ people is the basis for everything. And in my videos, when I talk about it and how I feel, especially with the government that we have in, and we have a left-wing government in, they go, do you know what we need? We need higher wages. Everyone's like, we need higher wages because businesses are really wealthy, right? That's what they say. So what they did is they increased the minimum wage in Australia, and that's what they're doing in America, increasing the minimum wage. What's this got to do with tariffs? So they increase the minimum wage, and then it becomes very hard for us to compete, okay? Because now I'm paying my workers, let's say $35 an hour. China's paying their workers $900 a month. So what I'm competing with, I'm competing against products coming in from China where the postage is virtually free, which doesn't pay taxes because it comes in under the threshold. So they don't pay tax on the same item. So if I'm importing that and selling this item, whatever this is a powder, but if I'm selling this item, I've had to pay taxes. If you import this, you don't have to pay taxes, you're exempt. So for me, I get a penalty having an Australian business as opposed to an imported business. If I've described that correctly. So if you want to import a bow from China, from AliExpress, or a product from China, from AliExpress, you don't have to pay any customs. It just comes straight in. But if I want to import a bow from China, I've got to pay the Australian government taxes on this product. And then I've got to sell it. Then I've got to provide a warranty for that product. Under Australian law, when you import the product direct from China, there's no warranty. It's like you're tough luck. Right? But I've still got to compete against AliExpress. So I've got to compete against AliExpress with high costs, high regulations, and paying taxes. So it makes it very, very hard to have a business that's competitive. So this is my problem with the debate between the minimum wages and the, when I say left and right, different viewpoints. Okay? So I think, when I think about stuff, I always think, well, is their policy encouraging business, encouraging people to set up a business, encouraging people to be self-sufficient instead of being dependent on government, or is it going the other way? And all I feel is the incentive is to work for government. The incentive is to be on unemployment. The incentive is to be on pension. Because if I was to go and work in government, I would be on substantially more than I am setting up my own business. I'm telling you the stress levels between owning my own business and working in the government, because I've done both, there is no measure. In the public service, I have almost endless holidays. And people are going to say endless holidays. I get 4 weeks a year, which I can take at half pay. So that's 8 weeks a year. I get long service. 4 weeks a year, I can take it at half pay, so there's 8 weeks, so I get 16 weeks off a year, plus public service, plus public holidays, and other days off. So when I was in the public service, I was having 16 weeks off a year on a salary many times greater than what I earn right now. And right now in the owning my own business, you worry about a lot. You worry about stock coming in, you worry about shipping costs, You worry about break-ins, you worry about whether you paid all your bills, you worry about whether you paid all your taxes, you've got to submit taxes what feels like every week. It's just, we're in the public service, you just go and do your job, and it's like, I cost a few policies, I do a bit of this, I write some drafts for regulations. It's pretty simple, right? I'm not having a go, I'm not discouraging you from setting up an archery shop. And I'm going to do a video on, I think, who should own an archery shop and why you should own one. But I just want to have this debate about tariffs, because I listened to this debate with, I'm going to call them, and I think I can call them right now, morons, because you need to go and look at how things were and how they are now. Did things get better? Because I listened to the debate on politics, and people go, the American economy is booming right now under Harris. Things have never been better. Okay? And I've done videos where I'm going, look, my assets have gone up $1 million. Well, just one property's gone up $1 million, right? And I've had this debate many times with myself. Anytime a left-wing government is in power, I become wealthy, because massive inflation occurs, and we can absolutely make the case that the last right-wing government caused the inflation. Happy to agree with that. But I don't feel I've achieved, okay? I don't feel I've achieved because I haven't had to work for that. And I haven't got wealthier because just the cost of everything's gone up. So it's made it harder to get into business. It's made it harder for the poor people. And all it's done, it's been a massive wealth transfer from basically middle class to the elites. So what you've said is, well, anyone who's got money, you'll have lots of money, and anyone who doesn't have any money, you'll just never own a house. And that's bullshit. It's absolutely bullshit. Anyway, this is my video on tariffs. Some of my friends in America have asked me to do a video and just discuss about my views on politics and what I see and how I see it, because I watch stuff on it. Anyway, that's my view on tariffs, because Donald Trump came out and said he wants to be a tariff king, which is exactly the opposite of what happens in Australia. Australia said, no tariffs. I'm going to take my shipping container going back to China. So, shipping container leaving China and going back to China, $30,000 worth of tariffs of Chinese products going back into China, not being sold. That was the cost. So 30% tariffs into China. Now, a lot of my friends make wine. When I say friends, customers, archers are winemakers. They make wine and they export it to China. There's tariffs, right? So Australian wine, which is, let's say $15 a bottle, when it makes it to China, it might be $30, $40 a bottle. That's tariffs, and that's not a free trade, okay? We can't export all our meat to China. We can't export all our whatever we make to China. There's tariffs on it. So I'm just going to leave it there. Your views, whatever you want, I don't really care, because you vote a left-wing government in, I'm going to get richer, so I'm just going to leave it there. I think you should always look at, is life better now than it was? And people are going to say, look, it is. Life is better, and I'm happy to agree. Okay? I'm happy to agree. However, my dad at the age of 24 had a very basic job. He worked his way through the company. Mum stayed at home and looked after the kids. We're a poor family. I couldn't afford a bow. Okay, I worked. I couldn't afford anything. The kids who work for me now have got cars. They're doing quite well for themselves, right? And I'm not taking anything away from them because they work, and I think it's good. Okay, I think it's good. They work. They're good workers. I'm very happy to have them in my shop. But the opportunities. My dad had a basic house. He had a basic block of land at the coast. Today, The ability for a lot of people to buy a house is removed. The ability for a lot of people to set up businesses is removed. It's just not an option for them. So there are many options available today, like driving Uber, and 101 options of ways you can make money today, which weren't available in my day. But I'm just saying the basics are buying a house and buying a house and setting up a business. Today, it's not as easy as it was in the 1970s, 1980s, or 1990s. It's a lot harder today. I'm Stephen Han from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching. Bye.